June 23rd is coming up now, which is obviously the day for the EU referendum, and that referendum is obviously to decide whether Britain stays in the EU, which is different to Europe, or comes out of the EU. Obviously, as time is getting closer and closer, a lot of people are now thinking more prominent about it, thinking about the pros and the cons about it, and thinking whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and trying to make an informed choice. I think a lot of people find it confusing, the pros and cons, and I think what people was hoping or expecting over the campaigning was people to get the facts and figures from both sides, and then they could make an informed choice. The unfortunate thing is that's not necessarily happened. I guess in terms of politics, when politicians are campaigning for whatever, they'll always try and make their side sound better, which is understandable, I guess, a little bit. So in terms of this, I'm an EU skeptic. I've always believed passionately with my heart that the EU was wrong, and I believe that we should have come out of it because of democracy and sovereignty. They're a major issue for myself. Obviously immigration benefits and other issues, and each and every one of us has our own priority, what's important to us. Obviously we've seen the campaigns on the TV and the debates going backwards and forwards. I wonder if it is right that I should vote with my heart, or should I engage my head and think a little bit more about this one, whether it is a practical decision to go with my heart. So with that, obviously I'm politically minded, working in the finance industry for years, so I was able to carry out a little bit of research into this, if you like, and try and find out for myself whether it was a good thing or a bad thing to go with my heart, or if my head would come up with something different once I started looking into things. Hopefully that's going to be useful to you guys as well. I'm obviously going to try and keep it in layman's terms and not make it any jargon, as lots of campaigners have done in the past. In terms of this, obviously the campaigners are saying it's important that we stay in, because otherwise we're going to be financially worse off, and figures of up to £4,000 have been bandied about that will be each and every one of us worse off. That doesn't necessarily mean that we have to pay £4,000 to come out, but overall they're thinking the money that's coming out of the economy equates to about £4,000 each. Why they do that, I don't know, because they're trying to personalise it, but in reality of it, people won't be paying £4,000 to come out of it. So in terms of that, we obviously have to look at whether we're better off. We have to have a figure. What figure are we talking about? The politicians are talking about GDP, and predominantly that is the state of the economy. If GDP is going up, that's a good thing for the economy. It's doing well, moving in the right direction. If it's in a negative, it's detracting, and obviously things are going worse. So when you're looking at facts and figures, the Remain campaigners have said it's important that the business leaders and business communities, financiers and things like that are supporting the Remain campaign. What was interesting that I found the economist Andrew Lillico, who's the economist for Great Britain, being interviewed on Sky News, and I thought this guy's obviously going to be talking about the positives for remaining in, because the Remain camp say these type of people are obviously backing their campaign. So I thought it'd be interesting to try and learn a bit more from him. Obviously being the chairman of the Economists of Great Britain, he's obviously a knowledgeable guy, respected in his field, and he knows his stuff. In that interview, what was interesting was what I learned from him was he agreed with the Remain campaign, that in the sense that the EU makes up 2% of our GDP, our economy. So the Remain campaign, or the government, a year ago said also it was 2%, but in recent weeks they've increased it to 6%. This gentleman, Andrew Lillico, says no, it's still what the figure was 12 months ago, which is 2%, and therefore we will be worse off by 2%. What he goes on to say is that's the negative, but the positive, because we're able to then negotiate our own trade and our own agreement, then we can actually benefit up to 2% of GDP as well. So the Remain camp are saying on one side we're going to be worse off, and technically they're right. What they fail to say is we would be better off because, well, we would increase that negative by being able to report our own, do our own trade deals effectively. So the long and short of it is we will be break even in all sense. So financially it doesn't matter overall in terms of the economy whether we're in or out, because it matches itself out in all sense and purposes. It does say there may be some short-term pain, but in the long term and medium term we would obviously get benefit from that, which is great. So the first tick in the box for in terms of finance of the country, whether we'd be better off or worse off, it doesn't matter, it's neutral. So it's neither here nor there whether we're in or out, because it'll stay the same. Obviously they've talked about the Remain campaigners have talked about the big institutes backing them, the European Central Bank and other such financial institutes, if you like, backing the EU Remain campaign. Now these are the people that also said we would be better off signing up to go into the in the Euro. That didn't happen, thankfully, and obviously them experts got it wrong. So if them institutes got it wrong then, why should we now believe them? Because I can't see any evidence of they say, right, we got that wrong because of X, Y and Z, and we've learned A, B and C, and therefore we're right on this one. So I can't really give any credit or credence or weight to these people being behind the Remain campaign, because in essence they got it wrong last time. So I can only go off past performance, and I don't know what the future performance or predictions could be like, if you like. Now obviously the next type of thing is they're talking about jobs. Obviously we will lose jobs, they're saying, and I thought, well, obviously the finance of the country, which I've just talked about, is important, and the next probably important thing will be to look at jobs. Will we lose jobs, and we will be worse off as a country if we come out of the EU? I signed up to, although I don't own any shares in the publication, but I signed up to a magazine called Shares, and in this publication that comes out weekly, they've done a fantastic piece this week. What they've done in the article, they've looked at 20 different sectors and whether they would be better off or worse off being in or out of the EU. Out of the 20, they break down that 6 will be better off coming out of the EU, 6 will be worse off, including bankers. Well, we all know what, we all have thoughts on those, so they would lose out by coming out of the EU, so you can see why they're backing to remain in. But then the remainder or sectors it's too hard to call whether it will be beneficial or disadvantageous to come in or out of the EU, so they're undecided. So again, just like the financial side of things and the stability of the country, jobs, again, we will lose some but we'll gain some. So over essence it breaks even. So again, I'm thinking, okay, so neither one is kind of going side by side. Obviously, they've talked about democracy. Now, this is a big issue for me. But I find it hard to believe that the 29 people that are unelected by anybody in Europe or in the EU that then sit in a room that make 60% of all laws. You would think that the MEPs, members for European Parliament, would actually make our laws, and they don't. They only actually vote on the laws that these commissioners, who are unelected, make. And that seems nonsensical to me. For me, I would like our Parliament to make our laws and our rules, and because if they get it wrong or they do something that I don't like, I've got the power of the democracy to kick them out and vote against them. And I believe that's something strongly, and I believe in the sovereignty, that we should have our own sovereignty back here. Obviously, the EU is pushing an agenda of a EU state. That's something I don't like, especially by bureaucrats that are not elected. They don't represent me, they don't represent the EU constituencies throughout the EU, they're representing themselves and the EU state, so to speak. So again, that's a strong one for me to come out. Obviously the Remain camp has also said if we come out it will be hard to get hire people in from the EU, because at the moment they've got free movement, we can get them in to help, and the nurses and the NHS and doctors, etc, etc. If we come out, we'll actually be able to recruit from wherever we wanted, just in the world, whether it be America, Japan, Canada, wherever. So it won't be a disadvantage to myself. Also, the Remain camp say that if we come out, then it'll be harder because prices will go up, because we won't be able to trade with Europe. Well, if they don't buy our goods, we don't necessarily have to buy their goods. And I'm thinking, I don't think for 1 minute the Germans would want us not buying their Minis, the Volkswagens and Seats and all the rest of it, the cars that they produce. And I think so. In terms of trade, I think it will be a balanced out, and you can go backwards and forwards. They want to buy our product. They also want to sell products, and it's a like for like. Again, balances out. In terms of just going back onto jobs, it's interesting that the boss of JCB has said that if he would come out, it doesn't matter. He would still sell his diggers around the world, including Europe, because people will still want his product. And he believes that if people make a product they want, then obviously people buy, regardless of whatever we're in. And that's fair enough. Defence. Now this is so bogus to me that they're saying if we come out of the EU, and then security is going to be an issue. I can't see it, because NATO is fundamentally our defence partner, or the organisation that does the defence, not the EU. In terms of sharing security information for terrorists and lunatics, I wouldn't imagine the French or the Germans wouldn't share intelligence with us, because they want it from us, and it's a two-way street, because invariably we have a shared interest of keeping both our countries and citizens. So, for the reasons that I've obviously talked about and discussed, I believe financially, jobs even themselves out, and actually believe that my head is right, that we should vote out. So, in terms of when people say, are you voting with your head or your heart, both intellectually and with my head, I'm saying vote out, and with my heart, I'm obviously saying vote out as well. Because I can't see any disadvantage to voting out, and only benefits, which is what I'll be voting for. Hopefully you found this clip interesting and hopefully useful, and put some of the jargon into simple terms. And yeah, hopefully you get out and vote on the June 23rd, and let's get out of the EU. Okay, thank you.